How's it going? Welcome back to the channel. So next up, we'll be hopping into another book, and we'll be doing Why We Dream by Robb, the transformative power of our nightly journey. And I came across this book totally by chance. I just had some time to kill near Barnes and Noble one day, so went to walk around and see what they had in stock. And anytime you do that, at least around here, the pick you have from Lucid Dreaming books is always like super tiny. I mean, like 3 or 4 books sometimes it seems, or even less than that. The whole rest of this section where you find the Lucid Dreaming books in is always full of 7 million books on crystals and tarot cards and stuff like that, which is cool and all, but that just, ain't my jam in particular. So I go over there to see what they have. And, they normally have like the same kind of more popular books, or maybe like one of Robert Wagner's books or something like that. And they always tend to be more about the mechanics of the practice. But when I came across this one, and why it really stood out to me, because it wasn't so much about the mechanics of it, although she definitely talks about that some. It was more about like the history of dream work and dream studies, particularly in the West. And so, man, I learned a lot. There's a lot of cool shit in this book. And, as long as I've been in this practice and stuff and been reading books on it, I've never found a book like this that went over all the studies. And a lot of these studies that I've heard about and stuff, I hear them referenced here and there in different books, but I've never gone through and tried to pull them all together in some coherent manner. And thankfully, Alice did all the work for me. So, thank you for that. And so we'll be going through this also as we work our way through the book, instead of going through it front to back, as I've done most of the other books that I've discussed on the channel. This one, I basically read it 3 times more, maybe even, where I went through it the first time, did way too many highlights, went through it again to kind of pull out those highlights, put them into my Evernote, and then cut them down a little bit, and then also tried to reorganize them, because she has a way to flow through it in the book, but the way I kind of wanted to cover it was a bit different. So we'll be going through it kind of like this, not in this order, but first, I'll just kind of go over the kind of random stuff that I couldn't fit into other categories. Then we'll talk about the history of dream work from the, BC time frame to the 1800s, or to the when the West really started picking it up. We'll talk about the 1900s, or go into the 2000s up to present day stuff. And then a few things in there I pulled out because it just seemed to be particularly interesting. So there's a few specific studies in there that I'm going to really pull out and do deeper dives into. Of course, we'll talk about REM and how REM was discovered, which at least I wasn't fully aware of how that came about. We'll go into dream recall and talk a bit about how kids differ from adults, which, me having kids was a super cool read. We'll talk a bit about problem solving within the dream space. We'll highlight a few prominent people, being Freud, Jung, and Stephen LeBairs. And I'm not sure how deep into that we'll go, because she goes really deep into them, especially Stephen LeBairs, where I've never heard his story fleshed out so deeply as she did in this book. So we'll cover some of that. I'm not sure how deep we'll get into it, though. I'll talk a bit about when psychology turned on Freud and how in the end it kind of brought him back in and he wasn't so demonized, although that brother was pretty crazy, man. He's way too obsessed with sex and shit. Talk about nightmare work, and yeah, and then that's basically it. So again, I don't know how many videos I'm gonna end up making on this. Sometimes it takes me multiple months to get through these books, so hopefully this one will be a bit faster than that. But look forward to it, man. A lot of cool shit in this one.